talking point over the last week has seen Gen Z teenagers criticizing the original American Pie movie as quote unquote deeply problematic. The experiment was set up by Vice that saw teens describe it as bordering on incel attitude, citing in particular the scene where Jim and the gang filmed Shannon Elizabeth's foreign exchange student character without her permission. And I want to state my biases upfront and clearly here. American Pie was one of the first DVDs I ever owned, and that, along with the second Austin Powers movie for whatever reason, got constantly replayed when I was a teen myself. So it's something I have that natural affinity for when it represents a core part of your childhood. So to address Generation Z and their criticisms directly, I have this to say. No fucking shit, it's problematic, you idiots. This is like my least favorite recurring discussion piece when it comes to culture that's aged, because it's such a low bar for bottom of the barrel clickbait outlets like Vice, BuzzFeed, or Joe, who they run for easy engagement that doesn't actually say anything or even fully understand the context of what they're saying. It's the journalistic equivalent of sticking their hand up their arse and telling people to smell their fingers for attention. I'm not going to have a go directly at Generation Z, apart from just calling them idiots a second ago, mainly because now I recently learned that I'm now considered a mid-tier TikTok account owner. So apparently I'm down with the kids on a very minuscule level, but they're just doing what every other generation does. And what I probably did when I was in their kind of age group. But man, when you get older, you really realize how annoying it is. Basically, all that's happening here is people are observing growth and progress in society, but they're spinning it as a negative, so they sound patronizing, and it winds up old fogies like me. American Pie does seriously have problematic attitudes and a plot point. Of course it does. But if anyone making that point had two brain cells to rub together, they'd ask, and what does that tell us? That's the next question in that sequence of thoughts. It tells us why we needed to have a Me Too. It tells us how overpowering the teenage male's insatiable obsession with sex can be and what it can look like in a society that doesn't know better. That's literally what art and culture are supposed to do. They capture a snapshot of the time it was told in, which then allows us to see things from different people's perspective and frames our understanding of the world around us. Take Friends, for example. There were calls to remove that from Netflix when they picked it up a few years ago because of young people being horrified by some of the insensitive attitudes towards the likes of gay people. But why that's interesting is because I can observe that when I grew up, Friends was actually what taught me about gay people and what normalized it for me. It was actually progressive for its time, and that's not to defend the humor. I'm not. That's to give perspective on it and context to understand what problems existed, how we took steps to address them, and how we eliminated them, which we can then learn from if we look at, say, okay, this is how people saw gay people then. Now this is a very similar attitude people have towards trans people. So what can we learn and what can we transport to kind of eradicate that and kind of close that gap? We act like the idea that Gen Z has discovered this is a news story because these bargain basement outlets need clicks. But this has always been and will always be a thing. In my generation, we said it was weird that Marty McFly was seen as a hero despite suggesting in Back to the Future that one character feel up another to get out of a jam. That's literally sexual assault that he said there. But again, we don't turn around and say Back to the Future needs to be cancelled. No, we can contextualize it because we're older and we can put this into perspective. If you go back another few years, the generation before me cringed at how Luke Skywalker kissed his sister and everyone was just fine with it. No questions were ever raised. Even they didn't raise any questions. Even when they found out they were brother and sister, nobody said, we shifted. These problematic aspects don't make this art bad or worthy of being boycotted or shunned away forever. In fact, we should do the opposite. That makes them essential. To understand where we are, we need to understand where we've come from and how we've got there. Or else you're the Gen Z person in this experiment who, I'm not messing, gave the quote, "Men treat women with a lot more respect now." And look, I would love if that were true, and like I'd love it for future daughters or granddaughters I may have, and definitely some behaviors in these movies and shows are now no longer normalized. But let's look at this and let's get into perspective now. It wasn't my generation who needed to criminalize revenge porn. My generation's mobile phones couldn't even take pictures that when I was in secondary school. So we weren't able to share those pictures around of nudes of other people and other students and ruin lives that way. That's a Gen Z original right there. Let's make these observations and let's have these conversations. Sure, they're interesting and can be thought-provoking to relive and re-examine old attitudes at the time with a present-day lens. But let's lose the fucking patronizing tone as if one generation is better and as if the kids of Gen Z's generation won't be mortified about how problematic some of the stuff that they enjoy today is 20 years from now. Guys, you're just as weird. You're just as creepy. You've just found new ways of doing it, and they usually involve taking pictures of your dick and sending them on your phone to strangers. Now, shut the fuck up being patronizing and acting like you don't have any issues and like you solved the patriarchy because you watched American Pie. And well, there's the TikTok gone anyway. But sure, look, that is what it is. I've had my say, and that's all that matters.